I want to encourage or um, invite you to think a little bit differently about your experiences with men who are showing up where you have quite a deep soul connection with them, but they are not able to commit to you fully. And I want you to consider whether this is not actually a wound per se or some deep defect or a subconscious pattern that needs to be recoded, but we will look at that. And more about, is this an archetypal energy that I'm operating in at this time, which is imbalanced and is okay? So if you're the wild woman, I was in the wild woman archetype heavily for a lot of the last few years. And even when I was in my dr career-driven aspect, I was deep in my huntress. So for me, having committed relationships wasn't a desire at all. What I needed and what I created and cultivated was relationships that served me sexually, served me for the companionship that I required, but left me a lot of space, in fact, huge amounts of space and freedom to be me, to be in my creativity, to be in my own ability to just get up and travel wherever I wanted, to be able to do my morning rituals in the way that I wanted to do them, to be free. There was a deep, deep, deep compulsion to be free, and anything that became too close felt like being smothered and felt I didn't like being controlled. Now, as I've evolved, part of me says, okay, is that avoidant attachment? But I'd like you to look at how our archetypes can also be creating these dynamics. So when we look at coming back to wholeness and when we look at how we change and evolve and our needs and desires evolve, um, we're not looking at it through the lens of being wounded or something to fix. We're looking at it from a lens of curiosity and a deep understanding of how our internal energetics, our vision, our values, the stories that we are living through are creating the experiences and that we can change them at the drop of a hat. That we have the power to co-create and change our lives and what we're experiencing by not identifying with a story around it, but actually choosing something different. So, one of the key things about being a wild woman, being a mystic, being someone deep who is a deep depth and is on her own spiritual path, is that she is highly independent. She does desire spontaneity, adventure. Um, and one of the things I've noticed in some of the relationships that I've had is that there's an undeniable deep soul connection. So there's two men, two of the ghosts of lovers past. I had deep, deep soul connections with them, as in there was a deep, deep love, deep, deep reverence between us. But when it came to the values within myself evolving into wanting um commitment and moving away from part-time love, which I actually had a song about because that's what I was into. That's what I celebrated. It felt safe and beautiful for me to be a part-time, to have, they were my part-time lovers. Um, what it is, a couple of things happening. So from the man's side, he's either emotionally unavailable anyway. So due to wounds or traumas or immaturity or things that he's experiences, or his life is not set up to hold you in the way that you of your power needs to be held when you start to command and call in a different version of him. And what we're looking at there is his king archetype. So if you're with a man who is uninitiated, and you've both, because you were in your wild woman and you're free and it was all good and you just want to play and have fun, but then something within you evolves and shifts, but he hasn't initiated to that. Um, he's not going to step into that king or provider because he's not there. So he'll feel the pull of that soul recognition, but won't have the capacity or the readiness to match it with action. So it's not that you're um that you're not claimed or you're not chosen. I think this can be very binary and very lacking the nuance that's required for the complexity of human behavior and the energetic, the psychological, the emotional, the spiritual levels in which our souls engage and intertwine with one another. And, when we look at human design, we see a very clear blueprint and a clear map of our archetypal and consciousness and our energies. And those energies can either be operating in low spectrum of energies, or they can be operating in a more illuminated spectrum of those energies. And the point I'm trying to make by saying this to you is none of that is fixed. It's always shifting, and it's always shifting based on the habits, the beliefs, the stories, and the way that we are dancing with reality and consciousness. So when you do experience this deep soul connection with someone, but find that they then, when you have shifted in your desire, but they haven't, if it is a recurring pattern where a man will tell you that he has this unmatched connection with you, but cannot fully commit, we could be operating from a template of believing in almost love. So this template is that we can almost be chosen, we can almost be um, adored, but not fully. And this is rooted in childhood dynamics where love was inconsistent, was conditional, and or was withheld. But it could also be us being attracted to potential rather than embodiment. So this is when we resonate with his spark and his artistry and everything that you can see, everything that's good because we're awakened, we are light workers, we are mystics, you see that potential in them, but you're not looking at their present day behavior and their maturity, showing that we are somewhat in that maiden who loves to see potential, who loves to see what's possible, but isn't rooted in reality of now. And the frequency of devotion versus freedom, where we can over identify with being that wild woman, being uncontainable, and men revere and admire. but they feel they cannot ground with you. It's that thing about being feared and loved, you know? Um, and so what we need to do is balance that wild woman archetype with our solid queen energy so that we inspire and we can hold connection, hold relationship, hold the other. Um, and then, ask yourself, is there a part of me that truly fears vulnerability and fears what it would mean to be truly intimate with somebody, to be truly seen? Um, and this is something I've been grappling with around being chosen. And this not chosen, but around mutual choosing, because it's not about being chosen. The woman selects. When you step out of the mindset of I need to be chosen and claimed and into the understanding that you are actually the selector and your energy is what then allows you to choose and attract people of the same, who are operating on the same frequency, who have the same desires, things shift. And I want you to think about where there might be a template running of being connected to longing rather than accepting, like moving away of being wired for love to feel like longing and to come into the safety of it just being, you know? So moving out of this pattern, we want to do work around integrating our archetypal energies that we're operating with. And in the Maiden to the Queen program, we will be doing that. We'll be doing luxurious inner work to look at where our certain aspects might be out of balance and how we want to balance them with other ones to come into that wholeness and come into that power. Um, and we will look at those subconscious patternings and templates that we're running and the stories that we're running with that actually keeps us looped into experiences that are not satisfying or that are repetitive and be able to recode them and again take that pen in your hand and write your script. Um, but to move out of the pattern of almost love and part-time lovers. I'm a part-time lover. Love me good, love me good. You said you never found another who loves you like I do. There's something about personality that clicks. You know, I really mean it. It happened many years ago, and I can't quite seem to leave you out of my life. And like, I even have songs. And when I look back at the lyrics of my songs, I'm looking at the lyrics of the life and the story that I've weaved. But I know how easy it is to rewrite a new story and to start and to walk into a new timeline, a new experience, a new version of self. And this is what we're talking about. It's death and rebirth. So to move out of the pattern, the inner work we're looking at is upgrading the belief from I inspire unmatched connection to I am the woman that many men are ready to devote to and build with. And, are you the woman that's ready to devote to him and build with him too? We want to regulate our nervous system to feel safe to be chosen, safe to be cherished, safe in stability, stay safe in devotion. Because yes, it is real that the wiring that we have experienced from childhood is having an impact on the archetypal frequencies we're operating from and the stories that we're creating. And until we come in and contain that and have a look at that, just smiling because I remember I was working, I was big in my wild woman, even when I was at teaching, and I remember the final manager that I had before I walked out of this school because I was like, I cannot deal with this anymore. This guy said to me, I feel like, and we're in a staff meeting together, and I'm like giving him this new curriculum that I've created, which is just amazing. And he's like, I feel like I can't contain you. And I remember just thinking, what the fuck? But yeah, this is the fear that the wild woman can inspire, especially when trying to operate in um, spaces that are operating in systematic ways. Mhm. Anyway, now this is a big one. This is linked specifically to my story. You know, I had a father, and this is what I want to talk about. I want to do the part of it on father wounds and our experience with our fathers, because my actual father was an absolute Peter Pan. Absolute Peter Pan. Didn't want me, didn't want a child. On his deathbed, no, before he died, he had emphysema. So he would always be, um, he would always have these exacerbations and going, where it flared up towards the end when it got, towards the end of life. And one day he had this flare up and I saved his life, went to hospital, and I was sitting on the bed and I went and bought him loads of stuff like jackets and coats and shoes and things like that because he was a Peter Pan. He wasn't responsible. He wasn't financially solvent. He had never been in my whole life. He was a man who valued his freedom. Um, he wasn't responsible. He didn't have provider energy in any shape or form. He wasn't, he was a deeply lovely man, beautiful man, people, gentle man, but in terms of the being a masculine, he was not in provider energy. He was not stepping up to his responsibility as a role model, as a father. There was no wisdom passed on to me. Like he was very much like, let's take drugs, let's listen to music, let's be like, he was very, very, what's the word? Unconventional. Um, and a Peter Pan ultimately. And a few months ago, when one of the Ghosts of Lovers Past turned up, who I loved, and this was the one I actually really loved, and I still love him, but from a different place, um, from acceptance and unconditional love for who he is. He has the absolute signature of my dad in the sense that he wants to forever play. He actually, and if any one of you know the human design, he's actually a 2/4. So he is the archetype of the player, like playful, playful. The natural. The second line is people that like to be in their play. But he's not satisfied where he is in life. He isn't fulfilled in his journey. He's not linked to a deep sense of mission or purpose, although he's a fantastic, beautiful artist and creator. He's just not where he wants to be right now. And I understand the frustration that that can create for someone as well. But what it is, I had a dream because as he came into my life, I knew that this was an initiation. And in one of the dreams that I had with him, I was being shown that he was mirroring the energy of my father, and that the work that I was to do was to evolve that or rewire my desire to move out of being. attracted to the frequency of what my nervous system had been conditioned into, and to raise my own expectations, and to consciously rewire my desire. So what he represented was calling in the man who was just uninitiated. And so the work now is to call in the men who are initiated, who are in their purpose, who have done, who have walked their life and done their hero's journey. And so that you don't just feel a connection, or they don't just feel a connection, but they are ready to act. And this is the difference between, and in fact, a lot of my life, because of the men that were in modeled to me in my family of origin, it was always trying to fix potential. It was always trying to fix or see the greatness in him, and to build something with someone who did not have the capacity to do so, because it's the reenactment. And now it's about the king. So when that wild woman within you also balances with her queen, you can step into that match for what you want. And yeah, here we go. Now anchoring into queen energy, where your energy says, I am available for men who are available for me. And so what's the key takeaways? Let me know. What do you resonate with? How do the men in your life represent your own father, or energy of your father, or what you've seen? And and the question I always ask is, what would I have to believe for this to be my reality, to get to the core of what's driving some of the pattern? Um, if you're interested in the Maiden to the Queen program, which is on pre-sale now, if you want to be put on the wait list for it, or have any more information, please comment. Let's read, email me, let's connect. All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye.